What are the aspirations and intentions of British Columbians with respect to housing? Where do people live today, and where do they aspire to live? What type of community? Most live in either a suburban community or a downtown location, and that's also the two most desired locations. Millennials' location preference is actually evenly divided. And of course, then you see, as I mentioned, the boomers, as you look down the right column here, you start to see more division. So different generations looking into living in different types of communities. Metro Vancouver is the most desirable place for every generation, for every group, from every region. If money were no object, everyone, the majority of people, would like to live in Metro Vancouver. And you can see that City of Vancouver is far and away the first choice, followed by Burnaby and then the North Shore. 51% of British Columbians are going to make a move in the next 5 years. And I think a lot of what's driving that are these market conditions. The majority will actually stay in the same region. 75% told us that of those that were making a move, that they will likely stay in the same city or region that they currently live in. So for us, what's interesting to look at then is the percentage that will move to a different region. Where do they want to go? A quarter of them want to move to Metro Vancouver. And so we see that desirability of Metro Vancouver as a city. And that's actually fairly unusual compared to other cities that we work in. A lot of cities are striving to make themselves more attractive and more desirable. That's not the issue here in Vancouver. Vancouver's a very desirable market. What surprised us out of this was that the second choice for British Columbians, if they can't move to Vancouver, it's actually to leave the province altogether. And when we delved in to say, well, who are these people? Who are the people that are most likely to make a move outside of the region that they currently live in? It's actually homeowners here in the metropolitan market. And what surprised us out of the research and the data that we collected was that it's actually Gen X that are the most likely to leave the city. And that's people like me, people that are aged 35 to 55 years old, that have a family, that are feeling the pressure of affordability the most. Single-family home was the one that still is the most preferred type of property. 43% currently own a single-family home, 8% are considering purchasing one, and 23% would like to own one day. This dream of owning a single-family home still exists, but we see as we ask people's opinion that fewer and fewer people believe that that's a possibility for them in British Columbia. So we looked at overall, these are what people rated as a 10, a 9, or 8 on a scale of 1 to 10. What are the most important factors for you when you consider choosing a new place to live? And cost of housing, number 1, and private outdoor space, number 2. Because it gets more interesting when you break it down and you look at it by generation. So for millennials, cost of housing and proximity to work and access to transit are the most important features. For Gen Xers, those likely to have families, it's cost of housing, private outdoor space, and number of bedrooms, because they're more likely to have children, are most important. And then when you think about boomers, it's cost of housing, private outdoor space, and garages and indoor parking are much more. So the parking and the car for boomers is much more important to them. Then we also looked at and think about how do you look at preferences between different ethnicities. So Asian British Columbians have different preferences than Caucasian British Columbians. So they're less concerned, we found, with private outdoor space and pet friendliness, and much more concerned with access to public transit, number of bedrooms, the proximity to work, size, etc. Private outdoor space is much more important to Caucasians than it is to Asian British Columbians. But when you ask British Columbians, what type of home would you like to have, 2 and 3 bedrooms are, on average, the most popular. But again, you get quite different results when you look at the preferences from millennials to boomers to Gen Xers. We see 1 bedrooms being much more popular, 18% of millennials, not having kids. And then that drops off quite quickly as you get to Gen Xers and boomers. So how do you reconcile these desires in terms of geography, of where we want to live, in terms of the homes that we want to live in? What would you be willing to compromise? You see that across the board in the city here in Vancouver, Metro Vancouver, we're willing to and more receptive to all of these trade-offs because we have to. This is where the pressure is being felt the most in terms of our housing choices. So thank you very much for your time and for attending our breakfast this morning. We look forward to further discussion. Thank you.